Okay, so a little bit of a different one today, right? I thought we'd go over some useful card interactions within the game, and as per the title, right, this is probably more geared towards new players, as you'll probably know some of them, especially if they're the classes you play. Now, personally, I didn't know about this, right? What we'll show off first. So, gaining action points. There are a few different ways to actually accomplish this, especially in Runeblade and Wizard. So we do have cards like Lead the Charge, and Lead the Charge is one of my favorite cards because it is very uniquely worded for what we get nowadays. So it has, the next time you play an action card with cost 0 or greater this turn, gain 1 action point. Now, the normal way, or I should say newer way, that this is worded nowadays would be the next time you play an action card with cost 0 or greater this turn, it gains Go Again. And that is a very crucial difference because Go Again or stacking Go Again will not result in extra action points. However, in this circumstance, gaining 1 action point off Lead the Charge is pretty fantastic, and if the card has Go Again, then you will enter that 2 action point state. But for Runeblade and Wizard, you have access to a easier way than most classes to play Go Again cards at instant speed. And why this matters is if you give a Go Again card instant speed, then it will actually generate 2 action points, right? It won't consume an action point because it has instant speed, and it'll still generate an action point because it has Go Again, right? So as Runeblade, simplest way to do this is with the Spellbound Creepers. So for instance, if we play our Rune Flash and we pitch the blue Lead the Charge, we attack, Spellbound Creepers are now active. We can then pay for Spellbound Creepers using the other Lead the Charge, have that activate, resolve, and now we can play Revel in Runeblood at instant speed. And again, because it has Go Again, we gain an action points, right? So once Rune Flash also resolves, since it too had Go Again, we will end up with 2 action points, which is definitely very useful because it means you can play now 2 powerful other effects that wouldn't normally have Go Again. Now in Wizard, this is probably a lot easier, simply because you have your big old Kano button. So as Kano, we have instant, pay 3, look at the top card of your deck. If it's a non-attack action card, you may banish it. If you do, you may play it this turn as though it were instant, meaning that if we hit a card with Go Again, like the various trinkets within the game, so amulets, potions, and talismans, where I don't think there are many or any potions that have Go Again, we are able to then generate extra action points, which is definitely a useful thing in Wizard, because you're either playing on your opponent's turn, in which case you cannot actually generate action points, or you're trying to play a lot of Wizard cards on your turn, in which case having those extra action points will allow you to get around the heavy cost of Kano's actual ability. So for instance, our hand is not that special, but we do have Robes of Rapture. So if we were to use Robes of Rapture, we would lose our action points. But we can let it resolve, gain our resources, and now use Kano's ability, hopefully hit an amulet, or it's an Aether Flare, in which case I will pitch another amulet, and we will then hit an amulet of Ablation, right? In which case we can play said amulets, and we regain the action point, meaning that we can now also play the Aether Flare, pitching a card, still have an action point because we're playing this one at instant speed, to then play Aether Dart following it up. So the other thing we can also do with cards at instant speed is use the stack to our advantage. So for instance, if we want to start off by playing Tome, we play Tome, and then we could trigger the effects. So say we want to draw 2 cards. We would then have the option to now play cards at instant speed. So we can either use Kano's ability, play Stormstriders to play another card, or use Kindle. So for instance, if we were to use Kindle, we have the whole clause of if there are no cards in your hand, draw a card. Now it is on the stack, but it is yet to resolve, meaning that if we were to now empty our hand, we would then draw a card off Kindle. So we could then fill up with Stormstriders, pitch our resource, and let it resolve, meaning that we can now play Gaze the Ages at instant speed, which has its own clause, but also opt. If you played another Wizard non-attack action card this turn, put Gaze the Ages into your hand as it resolves. So that means we can then play Gaze the Ages, let it resolve, we then get to opt to and return it to hand, meaning that we can now reshape our deck, sending anything to the bottom and top, and then also having the resources to then be able to use Kano's ability again, or if we were to generate another way to play it at instant speed, use Gaze again, or if we had the action points, wait until the stack resolves and play Gaze the Ages. But we'll put Kindle to the bottom, and then again, because we want this Kindle to draw, we can Kano, we can pitch away Gaze, we can pass, let Kano resolve, we hit another Kindle, unfortunately, so that's no good, but it's fine because now this Kindle will allow us to draw a card, and then Tome will draw 2 more cards. And again, you can effectively manipulate the situation through cards like Gaze to now make your draw buffs even more powerful. Now, speaking of draw, there are very, very limited ways in the game to actually draw cards in a positive fashion, meaning that we take our 4-card hand size and increase it to 5. The reason for this is it is a very powerful state. If you can have extra cards in your hand, you can potentially do a lot more in your turn. So for classes like Ninja or anything that has a low cost basis, having the ability to even just go 1 card extra in hand can have a real big spill-on effect. But how do we go around accomplishing such feats? Now, the easiest way straight away is to take something like Crown Dominion, which generates a gold token, and that gold token can then be spent on a card like Cash In, avoiding its cost, which is 4, to now draw 2 cards, meaning that we have spent the gold token, which is on board, not in hand, as well as Cash In to draw 2 cards, meaning we do go positive. But there are other ways to sort of plan ahead and try to luck into the right card draw, if you will. For instance, off of Cash In, we can now pitch and float resources. So if we play Cash In, instead of destroying copper, silver, or gold, we will pitch our resources, so Cash Out and the titanium bubble. To play Cash In, we go down to 3 cards, but we now have those 2 resources floating. So if we throw in something like Mage Master and Tome, we then can recoup our cards, meaning that we've now cycled 4 cards. We haven't gone positive in hand, but we have still cycled 4 cards, which is in itself a powerful way to play, because if you can find the right pieces to the puzzle of whatever deck you're running, you can have a more powerful turn. So if we were to Mage Master, spend a resource, we can now play Tome. Mage Master gives it go again, meaning that Tome doesn't end our turn, and we draw 2 cards back, meaning that, again, we've cycled through 4 cards of our deck in order to try and find something specific. Now, this is definitely powerful in a combo sense, right? The more you can just cycle and filter through your deck to get all the appropriate pieces, the better, you are able to pull it off. But in a normal match, cards like Cash In or Tome, while useful, are not as powerful without a secondary effect. So for instance, Tome of Ferendale. If Tome is played from your arsenal, gain 1 life for each card in your hand, meaning that if we had stashed it in the arsenal to again cycle through those 4 cards, we would have been able to heal 4 life, which makes it tremendously more powerful than Cash In, because in order for Cash In to have a powerful effect, again to go positive in hand, we have to sacrifice our head piece of equipment or have some other way to generate silver, copper, or gold. A card like Cash Out does just that. Cash Out allows us to sacrifice equipment to gain silver. So for instance, if we were to play Cash Out, we can now destroy our crown and our weapon, and that will generate us 2 silver. So with that 2 silver, we can now also cover the cost of Cash In, but since we've played Cash Out, we have lost a card from hand, meaning Cash In is now technically neutral draw. We haven't gone positive in hand. So we can pay for it with said silver, generate 2 more cards, hopefully see perfect Art of War. So Art of War is another one of these powerful generic draws. Now there are specific class draw, but Tome, Cash In, and Art of War are definitely the 3 big ones for every class across the board. Again, Tome has that secondary ability of being able to recover life. Cash In has the ability to go positive in hand if you do have the resources, and then Art of War has some other powerful effects. So Art of War has 4 different choices that you can pick from, and you also get to pick 2. Now the draw effect is you may banish an attack action card from your hand. If you do, draw a card. So in a basic example, Art of War is always going to be a negative draw. So Art of War does cost 1, not that you can see it unless you zoom in really close, right? Because unfortunately I'm covering it. I got to figure out a better placement. But yeah, so Art of War, you have to pitch a card for its cost. You also have to banish a card to draw and play Art of War, meaning that you have spent 3 cards, most likely, in order to draw 2, making it, again, a -1. For instance, with Tome, with a way to generate action points, for instance, again, playing a Go Again action card at instant speed, or a card like Lead the Charge, we would then be able to draw 2 cards. But in that scenario, we have most likely played at least 2 cards, meaning that Tome is neutral draw. With Mage Master Boots, again, sacrificing one of your equipment slots, you can turn it into neutral to positive draw, again, if you have the resources floating, meaning that through a card like Cash In, we could play a couple Cash Ins, and then Tome to try and get that 1 positive card, but that now means you need 3 cards to line up. So where does Art of War then become a lot more powerful? Well, if we swap to a class like Ninja, we now have a card, Roar of the Tiger, which says create a crouching tiger in hand, meaning that we can exhaust this card to generate another card. So that card that we do generate is going to be a 0 cost, non-pitchable attack in the way of Crouching Tiger. Now what this means is we can play Art of War by spending that Crouching Tiger, meaning we're able to gain the buff of Roar of the Tiger, which is Crouching Tiger's you control gain +1, as well as the benefits of Art of War, because again we get to pick 2 modes, meaning that we can take attack action cards, you control gain +1, or the next attack action card you play this turn, gains go again. Probably not until the end of turn. You may defend with attack action cards from Arsenal, but in this sense, the fact that you have these 4 choices of Art of War is probably why Art of War is, again, the strongest draw card in the generic slot out of the 3 that we've shown, because it is flexible. It's something you can play on your opponent's turn. Again, you don't have to use the banish clause, you don't have to use it to draw, but you can now, defend with an attack action card from Arsenal, which is powerful in itself, or on your turn, you have that flexibility of granting something go again, or taking a blanket buff. So if you're going tall, you're able to now play 2 big cards. If you're going wide, you're able to gain a blanket buff. So Art of War, because it has those secondary effects, makes it a powerful draw card, even if you're just drawing neutrally and cycling, or if you are going -1 in hand. But in the case of Raw, if we had a card pitched and resources floating, we could then try and make Art of War neutral, but in this case with a titanium bubble, we now unfortunately make it a -1. So we take the blanket buff, we get rid of the Crouching Tiger, and we draw 2 more cards. Now unfortunately, I do have more Roars in the deck, so if we draw another Roar, because we have resources floating, we can continue to stack the buffs while maintaining our hand size, because we do have those resources floating, making Art of War neutral draw. Now, the last thing for us to really look at is card decks. So we have Codex of Frailty. Each hero puts an attack action card from their graveyard face down into their arsenal. Each hero that does discards a card. So, for instance, if we now block with the Nourishing, it is going to go to our graveyard. So with it in our graveyard, it is now an acceptable target for Codex of Frailty. But we also have that clause, each hero that does discards a card. Now, the reason this is important to look at is because that each hero that does discards a card is a secondary effect, and it is not a clause, meaning that it is not a constraint for that first effect. You do not have to discard a card in order to put an attack action card from your graveyard into your arsenal, but you are required, if possible, to discard a card if you do fulfill that first effect. Meaning, if we are able to dump our hand and then have Nourishing come back, then we don't actually discard a card. Meaning, in this scenario, what we can do is cycle away a card with Deep Blue so that we can have the resources to actually play the Nourishing Emptiness, since it costs 2. Now, in equivalence to this, we have something like Mask of Malicious Manifestation, where it says, action, pay 1, put a card from your hand or arsenal on the bottom of your deck, destroy the mask, reveal cards from the top of your deck until you reveal an attack action card, put it into your hand, then shuffle. So the difference between this is, again, where the step happens. So for the Mask of Malicious Manifestation, you must put a card from hand or arsenal on the bottom of your deck before any of the other effects can resolve, meaning there is no way to cheese Mask of Malicious Manifestation, unlike Codex of Frailty. Now, we have Deep Blue so that we can pitch away one of our premeditates, but the other way is to think about what you're trying to do on your turn. Again, Nourishing Emptiness costs 2, and try to overpitch, meaning if we had, for instance, say, one card that costs 1 and a blue, we could play that 1 cost card, pitch the blue in order to have those 2 resources floating, so that when we play Codex and we have nothing in hand, we can then play Nourishing Emptiness. Now, in another scenario, say you have a 2 cost card and 2 cards in hand, one being red, one being blue. With that 2 cost, you can then pitch the red first and the blue, floating again 2 resources, emptying your hand and being able to, again, avoid the cost of Codex, which is, in the long run of a game, going to be a negative effect. So we will Deep Blue, we will get rid of 1 premeditate, float the 3 resources, play the other 2 premeditates. We don't have to worry about putting anything to the arsenal as Riptide, and now we can play Codex, returning Nourishing Emptiness and not losing a card from hand, but instead reaping the benefit of being able to play everything that we had. So we can then now attack with Nourishing Emptiness. It becomes a 12 with Dominate, which is kind of nice, and we ended up generating 3 Ponder tokens. 1 from the Codex, 2 from Nourishing Emptiness, plus we also get 1 Intellect from Nourishing itself, meaning that our follow-up is going to be quite nice. We get to draw 3 cards, stash 1 in our arsenal, not that we have anything else to really choose from, and then if we had 5 cards, we we'd have 5 more cards in hand. Okay, so finally, let's put it all together, right? So we're Klloo, we have proper equipment, and we have a bunch of draw and some abilities to use. So we have cash out to cycle, we have tome, and again, because we're going to cheese out action points, I can safely either play Tome of Ferendale or Tome of Aetherwind to draw cards straight away without worrying about trying to give it go again. Now, Tome of Aetherwind is the better card to start with since it is 0 cost, meaning that it is going to be a net gain, right? We get cash in. Now, unfortunately, again, we need to regenerate action points if we actually want to play anything we have. So we're going to Klloo, we're going to pitch the cash out, and hopefully we're going to hit something with go again. And we do. So we get a cash out, it has go again, we get to play it at instant speed, we get to destroy some equipment. So we'll get rid of, you know what, I can't remember what I want to use exactly. So we'll get rid of 4 equipment just so that we now have enough resources to pay for all 3 cash-ins through tokens and therefore make them all net gain. So cash out resolves, we gain an action point back, meaning that I'm free again to play a card from hand. So we play cash in, we can destroy the silver or gold to again gain a card. We then get another cash in, meaning that once again I can destroy the silver and gain another positive card, meaning our hand size is now a juicy 6 cards. Now we have Blazing Aether, Aether Flare, and Aether Flare, meaning that if we can generate 2 more action points, we're able to play all 3. So that is probably what we're going to strive to do. Now, we do have the silver to cycle, and we do have the tomes, but the best thing to probably do in this scenario is to now generate those action points. We have a healthy hand size, but we want the action points to actually be able to play everything. So we're going to play cash outs. We get a Talisman of Recompense, so we get to put that on board, and again, because let's go again, we're playing at instant speed, we generate an action point. Now, for the next one, we could either pitch 2 yellows, but since we hit the recompense, I'm going to actually get rid of probably one of the Aether Flares, right? We're not trying to do anything insane, just play a bunch of cards. So if we pitch away Aether Flare, the recompense resolves, and we gain those 3 resources, we hit another Talisman, so now we're at 3 action points. I can Robe of Rapture, gaining 3 resources, losing action points, and then I could also play a tome. We gain 2 cards back, we get to cycle with Gorgarian Tome, and we get another Blazing Aether. But once again, we're now in that titular state of deciding whether or not we want to build hand size or action points. The nice thing is we do have the 2 resources floating, meaning we could now use Klloo, pitch away the other tome, hopefully hit something with go again, or a Tome of Aetherwind, we'll definitely take that, meaning we can draw some more cards, have some more fuel for our Klloo. We hit another Blazing Aether. So unfortunately, we definitely need the action points. So we're going to play 2 Talismans of Recompense, which is actually a fun another interaction. So these have, whenever you pitch a card, if you would gain exactly 1 resource, instead destroy Talisman of Recompense and gain 3. Now the nice thing is they will both trigger. So for instance, if we proc Klloo and we pitch away one of the Blazing Aethers, both of them will be destroyed, and we will gain a ton of extra resources. We hit an Amulet of Intervention, so we can put that onto the board. Again, regain an action point. Now we have 3 left, so we'll be a little greedy. We can either go positive in hand size and still go again, maintain the 2 action points. Hopefully hit another blue. It's a tome, meaning that we'd have to probably pitch away a Blazing Aether and Aether Flare with it. So again, there is strategy to all this, but it is definitely a powerful interaction to learn and try to master. So we might as well end off. All we're going to do is hit a Aether Flare, pitch the tome away, pass, do a little bit of damage, and follow it up with a Blazing Aether. Now, if we were fortunate enough, we would have hit some of those important spells as we were cycling through, as we were generating action points, allowing us to do a lot more on our turn. As Klloo, cycling is a wonderful thing, and if a few of those draws went a little bit better our way, we could have done a lot more damage than 31. Now, we still have the ability to use Klloo, but unfortunately not the resources to do so. But that'll do for today. We'll leave it there, and if you do have any other interactions that, again, would definitely be useful to learn, do let me know, because this is going to be super useful for the combos that I do want to build, try out, and play. Anyway, hope you enjoyed. See ya.